Welcome everyone to the Meadow and Hawk Collective. It's Haley. It's gonna light a candle for us today to get us centered in this space together. Perfect, beautiful. So in this video, we're going to explore the Aquarius new moon, very exciting, which is gonna go exact at 7:35 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesday, January 29th, on Hermes Day, Mercury Day. This is a powerful new moon. So for this new moon, the sun and the moon are obviously going to be conjunct. Whenever we have a new moon, that kind of dark moon, we don't see it in the sky because the sun and the moon are exactly conjunct, the same degree of the same sign. In this case, 9 degrees of the sign of Aquarius, the fixed air sign. We can think about the water bearer. A lot of people kind of confuse Aquarius as a water sign, interestingly, because the glyph, the kind of goddess, the archetype of Aquarius is a woman carrying like a chalice of water. So I can see why you would think it was a water sign, but it's actually an air sign. And we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit further as I kind of share what I kind of think are some energetic things that might come up around this new moon. And then I'm also going to pull an oracle card for us by the Wild Chorus Oracle deck, and then also maybe get a tarot card for us to work with. Yeah, and so the sun and the moon are at 9 degrees of Aquarius, and interestingly, the ascendant, the degree of the zodiac sign that's ascending over the eastern horizon at the exact time of this lunation, is also 9 degrees of Aquarius, which is very interesting. Yeah, so we have the sun and the moon at 9 degrees and 51 minutes, I believe. Yes, of Aquarius, and then the ascendant's at 9 degrees and 25 minutes of Aquarius. So all very, very tight. And that potent degree of the ascendant is kind of symbolically a point of birth. Like it's literally like the moment where like the soul enters the body, in this case where the event kind of is at peak. There's some sort of like catalytic, kind of like the spark. Think about it as the spark. And so with the sun and the moon, kind of this like very prime kind of seeding, planting, dreaming point in the lunar cycle, being on the ascendant, this can feel very personal for all of us as a real potential to kind of enter that kind of alchemical soup and be reborn as something new. And also I will say, so we have this big Aquarius stellium, again in the first house because the ascendant is also in Aquarius. In addition to the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, we also have the asteroid goddess Ceres, the kind of the goddess of the grain, Demeter in Greek mythology. And then we also have Mercury, the psychopomp in Aquarius, conjunct the planet Pluto. And this, so a kind of myth that feels very present for me right now, I'm filming this video on the 20th of January, around this time of this, like a myth that feels prominent in the lead up is the myth of the Holy Grail and the quest, the search of the holy fool Parsifal to kind of go on this quest to find the Holy Grail. And kind of how I kind of interpret that in our like modern day lives in terms of psychological terms is the importance of asking the right questions. And when I was looking at the Sabian symbols for a lot of prominent points in this chart, which if you want me to do a video on Sabian symbols, totally just leave a comment and I will make sure to make that video because I think they're very powerful in terms of understanding our own psychologies and working with the natal chart. But a lot of these Sabian symbols that I was looking at had to do with, interestingly, like seeing, sight, optics, light, like tricks of the light, rainbows, prisms. Am I seeing what I'm really seeing, or is this kind of like the theme of magic and how magic, and I guess one understanding of magic is the magician has the capacity to manipulate the pace that we're seeing things, how we're just managing time, managing timing, perception, and how that changes reality and makes the impossible possible. And so the importance of asking the right question in the myth of Parsifal, of asking, in his case, to the king, what ails thee, or kind of being honest about something and asking, just quite literally asking about something. And so I think a very powerful practice for us at the time of this Aquarius new moon coming through at the end of January is to be brave enough to ask the right questions. And by right, I mean the truth, asking true questions of ourselves, of dynamics in our lives. Yeah, and kind of with that Mercury conjoining Pluto, that can kind of skew towards the like paranoia direction of, you know, in the media kind of seeing things as truths being revealed, like lots of facts or new information coming to light, but also the kind of psychological instinct to just like that true crime part of us that really likes to kind of tunnel under a story, like kind of mine the depths of something to find more details, to kind of like milk a story and kind of like weave it, and kind of this like conspiracy tendency even to just kind of start connecting all of the dots and then have this sort of narrative about what it means or what. So there's that way, but also just Mercury and Pluto in the degree, or not the degree, the house, the first house of self is very powerful for getting a lot of really deep psychological insights and even spiritual insights about ourself, the soul, our life path, the direction that we're going on, the ways that we're ready for change, the ways that we're ready to initiate ourselves into a new cycle, to have a new kind of focus or prominence of something that we're giving our energy and our attention to. And so the chart ruler, because we have Aquarius rising, it's going to be Saturn in Pisces, 17 degrees of Pisces. And so we kind of have this also, in addition to a first house stellium, we have a second house stellium where we have Saturn, we have Venus, we have Neptune, and we also have the North Node. And the North Node and Neptune are getting very close together, which can be these, again, this kind of like amplification of like soul-based realizations, inquiries, real powerful, transcendent, numinous experiences to start coming through. Yes, and so but with Venus kind of being, and I believe the astrological term for this is like a besiegement, which is not, it's not, I don't know if it's by degree exactly a besiegement, but basically what we have, a planet kind of sandwiched by two other planets. In this case, we have the goddess Venus, Aphrodite in the center, and then we also have Neptune and Saturn kind of doing this kind of squeeze motion. And what this can sometimes show up as, this kind of like either, it can be a lot of ways, but a few ways that I'm thinking of right now are kind of like an inner tension. So feeling kind of pulled between this kind of like more Neptunian, nebulous, like artistic, dream-based spiritual inclination, and then Saturn, the kind of like Lord of Time, Father Time, the kind of like needing to get grounded in the facts of a situation and kind of like, but Saturn in Pisces is also a very, very mystical point, because it's not like Saturn in Capricorn or Saturn in Aquarius, the signs that it rules, where it's more of this kind of, can be experienced as more of a, I don't want to say dogmatic, but like structured, principled. In Pisces, it's kind of dissolved. And so this feels powerful. I'll leave it there. Yeah. Let's see. Let me try my notes to make sure if there's any other points I wanted to be talking about. I think that's everything. And so, and I will say also this full moon, or not full moon, this new moon is forming a trine to the planet Jupiter in Gemini in the 5th house. And so it's like there's a lot of support once the kind of the paradox of the Parsifal story, once the holy fool has the bravery, the courage to ask the right question, to be able to receive the answer, which is ultimately like the healing of the king and the restoration of peace and well-being to the kingdom of the people that he serves in the myth. Like Jupiter is kind of like that healing salve, and same with like this beautiful Venus being exalted in the sign of Pisces. Like there's a lot of really soothing, which might not be, again, like the loudest or most obvious thing in the collective, as like, especially what we can expect around like classically every time Mercury and Pluto come together is a lot of news cycles that are kind of more dramatic or more expository, revealing, what's the right word? Just like breaking news, like, oh, and then kind of getting tunneled into like some sort of web of information and potentially paranoia or fear. But also, like, in the absence of all of that stimulus, that like loud media morphic field, there's a lot of really supportive energies that I'm feeling into once we get really honest and brave enough to ask the right question. Feels like the core of it. Or just to have this inner inquiry with ourselves, or this space to receive answers. Because with Pluto and Mercury conjunct, we don't even necessarily have to ask a question, we might just receive it. Like if there's any sort of degree, even if there doesn't have to be peace or quiet, or like that image of like the person meditating on the mountain. You could be in the airport in like Texas, like or you could be in like the Denver airport, you know, which is like pretty hectic, but you could still be receiving really important insights into yourself, your soul, your path, where you're going. So being open to receiving that. So first I'm going to get an oracle card for us. Beautiful. So Spirit working with the Meadow and Hawk Collective. What is the oracle card that is for us to receive? So we work with the energy of this Aquarius new moon. Oh, and I wanted to also say, with the sun, the moon, and the ascendant all at 9 degrees of Aquarius, and also being in a collective year of the 9, in terms of, if you add 2, 2025, basically the zeros cancel out, and then 2 plus 5, or not 2 plus 5. Am I doing that right? 2025. Yeah, basically it adds up to a collective year of the 9 if you kind of reduce all of those numbers, if that makes sense. Which is a hermit year, basically. So a lot of 9 energy being like the completion of cycles. And so it's like once the honest question is asked of ourselves, then it's like this new, it kind of initiates a new level of healing where like the past is in some ways transformed, which is pretty cool. Like there's the potential to let go of a lot of stories around the self and the world around this new moon. So tuning in once again. Oh, and I just remembered, so it's the 2 plus the 2 plus the 5, obviously, which adds up to a 9. Okay, so for us as a Meadow and Hawk Collective, working with the energy of this Aquarius new moon. Thank you. Beautiful. The card that I pulled for us is No Rush. Okay. And I'm gonna read it for us. No rush. This card symbolizes vegetable slowness, patience, and ripening. This garden holds time. A seed, interesting, we're getting that kind of classic agrarian metaphor for the new moon as a time of planting seeds. A seed takes its own private time to pull out of its shell and reach through the cold earth to the light. A young plant takes its own sweet time to mature and flower. A flower knows exactly when to fruit, and that fruit ripens only when it's ready. Too often we are rushed, and we rush ourselves past these slow stages of growth and maturing. The world may ask that we be perpetually productive, always fruiting, never decaying, never curling back into a seed and sleeping as we wait for spring. But this card grants permission and spaciousness. It wants to restore you to the speed of life. No Rush asks you to notice where the hustle may have you skipping over the good parts, missing what's important, or jumping ahead of yourself. It invites you to breathe in, exhale, and feel your feet on the ground. There is a process unfolding in your life, and it will take time. There is no rush to know what is not yet known. You are invited to slow down, relax, and chill out, probably with some plants, which is all of this time. These lessons, this wisdom around time is very apt for a chart ruler being in Saturn and Pisces, which is kind of like dissolving time. And so this is your permission to kind of, in whatever small way works for you in your current present moment, to kind of dissolve time, even if it's just for a few minutes, paradoxically. So the attunement message for this card is to let time move through your fingers like a heavy silken rope. Turn away from impatience and toward your sensation. Resist false urgencies, release the need for speed and for control, be curious about the how and not the when, and enjoy your gardens. Beautiful. So to round us out together, I'm gonna pull a tarot card, weaving together all of the magic and the medicine of this Aquarius new moon. It feels really strong. potentially confronting, but it doesn't have to be. So for the Meadow and Hawk Collective, what are we invited to know about this Aquarius and the Moon? The Empress. Beautiful. Literally a person who's allowing time to dissolve in the outdoors. Wow. Okay, so this just reminds me of that kind of essential feminine, the goddess Venus being in Pisces at this time and really allowing that kind of psychedelic, transcendent energy of the goddess to kind of permeate all of our lives, even in the most subtle of ways. So being open to not forcing a lot to happen at this time, but kind of in the position of the Empress, she's fully claiming her space, fully trusting that the things she's planted will come to a state of maturation and harvesting and growth. Yeah, so just channel her. So it's been beautiful to connect with you and to share time and space, and wishing you a beautiful, alchemical, transformative, clarifying, revivifying Aquarius new moon. Much love.